Today, if you happen to know when all hell breaks loose, the Antichrist takes over Earth, and Earth implodes, and all humanity ceases to exist, then you, sir, have enabled Auto CQ mode on WSJTX-Z. Yep, tonight we are going to talk about digital modes next on Live Free and Ham. Hello and welcome to Live Free and Ham podcast. This is our bi-weekly show where we discuss all ham radio topics in New Hampshire, New England, and beyond. So whether you're a regular listener or a first-time guest, we're excited to have you here and appreciate your support. And thanks for tuning into the show tonight. So let's get into the show. I'm your host, Eric, call sign N1JUR, and I'm with my co-hosts,
Paul, N1OJ,
and Todd, W1STJ.
All right, cool. Well, before we usually get into our topic tonight, we want to catch up on a few things. As always, our storefront is up and running, and you can visit that at livefreeandham.com/shop. And I want to do a couple of things. First and foremost, we thank everybody who's gone over to the shop and picked some swag and merch for us. As always, we appreciate it, everybody. And I want to point out this time, and I'm actually wearing it and sporting it. This is our Digital Life shirt. I wish I could have a back camera. I could probably spin around, but this is the original digital modes FT, what we call CW, but we also refer to it as manual FT8. Either way, you can pick that shirt up, and we have a new shirt that I just put in the store called I Speak Many Languages. And those languages are Quanchang, Zaigu, Baofeng, and TID. So you can pick that shirt up if you're a big Chinese radio fan, in our store anytime. And so with that, again, we are ramping up for our July live stream, working out some details on that. So stay tuned. So you're going to want to make sure, if you aren't already subscribed to our YouTube channel, that you head on over there at youtube.com/ at Live Free and Ham. And make sure you subscribe and ding that bell, and you'll be notified when we go live. And as always, we've got a little bit of our usual segments. So once we dive in here,
doing good. Doing good.
You do. That's good.
You good? You good?
You're doing good.
Absolutely, I do. Good.
Doing good, Bob. Doing real good.
Right now, my only outlet is my ham radio.
That is truly it, my friend. So again, we are doing our Do Good segment. And once again, I am sad. There was 0 emails in our inbox. There was nothing posted to any of our, reviews. There's apparently no good happening at all. And I'm just sad. I don't know how you guys feel about that, but in essence, apparently all clubs just don't do good.
No one's doing good.
Not in New England, and not apparently in the United States. But there is hope. If you happen to know a club that's doing good, or maybe you're a part of something and you want to spread the love, please just send an email to livefreeandham@gmail.com and let us know what's going on, and we'll share it with everybody in our family and community, because why not? Let's start raising up the good stuff. I mean, I'm listening to Ham Radio Clubhouse, not Ham Radio Clubhouse, HRCC, and they want to do a segment on all of the lids and everything. And I'm like, dude, I want something positive. So, let them go down that road. But, if you got something good coming on, please, share it with us. We want to spread the love. We want to, promote the hobby, and just show, how awesome things are in the hobby, because there's always a bunch of bad stuff going on. So let's just steer clear of that.
Yeah,
all right.
I got something good for you.
Go shoot. Good. Awesome. Then yours, my friend.
All right. So I missed out on it this morning. But the Flag and Torch Society it's a military and veteran amateur radio club, and they had a testing session. It was hybrid, so it was half online and half in person. Mm-hmm. But it was the Fort Eisenhower ham testing session. 52 soldiers tested, 41 passed, including 3 that upgraded to general.
Oh, awesome.
Nice.
That is awesome. Sweet. Woohoo. I need some sounds here, and I don't have them staged up. Oh, man. That is a bummer on the sounds there, but way awesome to hear. So that is totally cool. We'll leave those links if you got links to Flag and Torch there, just so you can go over and support them and show some love. But that is awesome. So it is true. It is not a lie that there is some good stuff going on.
Yeah, just nobody wants to brag about it, I guess.
Apparently. All right. Well, as always, like I said, if you've got some stories exactly like Paul shared, then head on over to your email inbox and send us an email at livefreeandham@gmail.com, and we will be sure to showcase it on our next show of Doing Good. And, we're going to put a little pin on it. It is summertime right now. And as we're recording this episode, we're going to take a little bit of a break there with a little something extra. Todd has gotten wrapped up in a build out process and enjoying his summer. So he's put a little bit of a break there on studying, but he has promised the crew here that he'll pick it back up in September and go full force with the hope, anticipation that before April, as HRC and other groups start testing for their extras and upgrades, that he will be ready for getting testing. So you heard it here first, and we're going to hold it to him. All right. Well, with that, so let's just get into our usual format. As I always ask all of our hosts here, what's been going on in your ham radio week, Paul? So go ahead and start us off.
Well, my ham radio week has been non-existent. I did not get a chance to play with the radio at all this week. I spent most of my time working on the boat. It's so close. So I'm done with all of my electrical, all of my wiring, all of my lights, everything. I'm having some issues with the primary motor and the secondary motor, but we'll get those wrapped up here this week and hopefully get her in the water. But then I was doing a walk around the boat, and I was showing my father-in-law this evening, because the boat was his and he gave it to me graciously. But I didn't realize that I had taken one of the sets of controls out because I needed to wire in some switches, and so when I remounted it, he had 6-inch lags securing this thing in, and I didn't realize I drove one of those 6-inch lags right straight through the hull.
Oh,
so I've got 2 inches of lag sticking out of the bottom of the hull of the boat, and so I'll have to fix that.
Better catch it now than when you're actually on the water.
Yeah, exactly.
We got 14,300.
I know, right?
I'm on my ham radio.
Mayday! I'm sinking.
You call it 14,300. You not call no time bubble. Man, that would have made video gold, man. The first maiden voyage. Paul's calling on HF.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Well, okay. Sorry to hear about the hole there on the boat, but definitely sounds like it's manageable and fixable. And I totally understand the HF stuff. Sometimes we just get busy with other projects, and as we all know, once you get down the rabbit hole, it's always hard to get back up out of it. So good on that. Well, with that, Todd, as always, how is your ham radio week been, and what's been going on?
Well, it's been all right. I got to multitask. I got 3 things done at the same time. Took my son fishing with his friend. I played ham radio, and while I was activating in park, I listened and somewhat joined into the club meeting via Zoom. So it's pretty awesome. Never did that before, but I got to listen to Eric's presentation on how field day went for our club, and busy making contacts. Was working the rail trail, working on the kilo. Great night, 20 meters. I got a lot of Europe, Sweden. Hadn't had a Sweden contact in a while, so worked Sweden. A lot of Georgia, Texas. The usual. And I made like 63 or 64 contacts, and I think I'm at 739, and Eric's at like 730.
Mm-hmm.
So we're right neck and neck, and we are definitely trying to get all tied up so we can do a live stream and show you guys what it's like to do a kilo at the same time because we've been working on this for a while, and we just got to get it put behind us.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah,
I hadn't been to that park since May. I was like, it's been since that long. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. 2 months.
I'm with you there, man. I've done the last photo activation I think I did was a big flop. Although no, it wasn't a flop in terms of contacts. I definitely made the contacts, but it was one of the technical recordings I did that just everything went wrong when it could, and so never really aired. So it's all right.
Well, the other reason I'm starting to really like this park is like Zach likes to fish. So there's a pond right where I activate. A lot of good fishing in there.
All right. Well, so I guess with me, I didn't have any fishing escapades to talk about, and definitely no holes in boats. Although I'm beginning to think we're going to start into a fishing podcast soon at the rate we're going. I ended up not like sort of like yourselves. I didn't get a chance to play a whole lot of radio. Work has just been nonstop and a lot of driving. So I think what I ended up doing was the IARU contest was this past Friday, Saturday, and I was just kind of doing some other stuff. And when I took a look at the Flex waterfall, I was blown away how freaking busy 20 was. And as I was telling the guys earlier offline, literally in the 15 minutes that I spent making contacts, I had about 20, 25 in about 15 minutes, ranging from Slovenia all the way to Austria to Belgium and Europe. And I mean, Europe was like a clear pipeline. And, you could literally spend the dial of, 1 or 2 hertz or megahertz in some cases up, and you'd be, on to the next contact. So that was always at least fun to play a little radio. Although I'm sure the family upstairs would have something different to say, because all they kept hearing was N1JUR, November 1 over and over again, because I had my headphones on. So that's all they heard me yelling, 59 and then my, section number or something. But it was fun. It was good to play a little contest radio and even for a short time. So that was good. And as Todd alluded to, I too have to go back to Rail Trail and make a couple more contacts so we can get, at least past the 850 mark. I mean, we've been at 7 something, or I've been at 7 something for probably a good, 5-6 months now at this point. So we've got to wrap that up and make, good on getting that dual kilo before September. Although I don't want to set a date, because we tried to do that before and it blew up in our face. So we're going to hold off on that one. But all good on that. So I guess with that, let's kind of roll into our discussion tonight. We're going to talk digital modes. I mean, we're obviously talk about, we alluded to FT8 in the very beginning there. But we will definitely dive into some of the other areas. And really tonight is just kind of, if you've never dealt with digital modes, you've never kind of dabbled in it or played with it, we're just going to give you our firsthand opinions of, some of those modes like JS8 call and FT8 and FT4 and using Whisper. And then, talk a little bit about some of our experiences with it, all with the intention that, if you've never played in those modes, you never kind of fooled around with them, we're going to encourage you to kind of go, try it out. I mean, in essence, ignore the naysayers, ignore the folks that, play, in that space and we're like, it's boring. It's like watching paint dry. It's 2 computers talking to each other. Yeah, it is. I mean, all of those negatives, but it is radio. I mean, in essence, it's just another form. And so if you look at it like that, dabble in it. You might find that, you might get something good out of it. But at the same time, you also might realize that, in the times when the band conditions are crap, FT8 or any of those other modes in digital world are going to come out shining, because they just do their job more efficiently than a voice ever could carry across the airwaves. So with that, let's kind of start somewhere and talk a little bit about it. Now, just as a kind of level set, all you guys have played in some of the form of digital modes, meaning FT8, JS8 call, those types of modes, right?
Yes.
Okay. I admitted to being a serial digital operator.
You did very early on. I was going to say, if you didn't admit to it now, I had the track ready to play in the background saying that was all you were going to do. But, you beat me to the punch. So I'm glad you admitted to it. So we all had some experience at some level. We obviously know, I think, in terms of the digital, and let's kind of just do a little high level set. When you're dealing with digital modes, it's an interface of your computer through some method of a USB or serial cable. to a radio to then convert your audio or the audio being generated in your computer out to the, over RF, and, another computer over there intercepts that information and then translates it and turns it into this conversation. And that conversation, I think, can look like a couple different ways. And so if we just kind of elaborate, at least there's the keyboard to keyboard version, right? And that's like the JSA call, right, Paul?
Yeah, JSA call or Vera AC or any number of modes in FLDigi.
Okay. All right. And then we've got the next kind of step, which is the more popular one, which is really like kind of that FT8, FT4 stuff, where a lot of it's kind of scripted. Well, we'll say scripted because in essence, pre-canned, and very controlled in terms of the messaging that's being sent between stations. And a lot of times it's just, signal report, grid square, and maybe one other, component, depending on what type of the message is. But it's very controlled in that nature, which I think, to touch upon those folks that complain about the mode being so dry, is that it doesn't allow them to converse anything more than, a small subset of characters. So I think that's kind of where people just go, well, that's just slow, or, boring or whatever. And so, okay. So let's kind of, Todd, actually, you're probably a good candidate to kind of talk about this. So we obviously dragged you into the digital modes once you finally got your, DX10 and whatnot. What was your experience in kind of dealing with them? How did you feel when you first, it was thrown at you? Talk a little bit about those feelings, and then we can talk a little bit of some of the technical challenges you kind of dealt with.
At first, when I heard you guys talking about FT8 and all, and I just didn't understand it. I was like, I don't get what's the point of it. Like I hit a button and it just does it by itself.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, I said, oh, okay, cool. I made a contact of that. Now, when I really got into it and when I started to understand is when we used to play that FT8 off.
Oh, right.
And and then we had to get as many contacts, and if you used QRP, you got more points, and then I started to learn, and then it became really fun for me, and then they got rid of FT8 off. Is that what it was called, FT8 off or something?
Yeah.
And then they got rid of it, and I was like, damn, that was I looked for, that was on Thursday nights. I looked forward to that. I thought it was fun, and I think one time I was in the top 10, so I was pretty psyched.
So let's just touch upon that real quick. So FD8 off was something invented by, and I can't quite recall, it was TO and a couple of other guys that was it on TO's stream? I can't remember if it was Toads or something.
Yeah, I think it was Toads.
Okay. So they created this kind of, we'll say a little pokerish but it really wasn't. It was just a scoreboard that they built that you could, pipe your contact information from your WSJTX to this website, and you can compete against points, and it tabulated all this kind of real-time leaderboard. And so they'd play for an hour, and you'd get to, make contacts. And for each level of contact, you got a different point score, whether it was more power or whatever. And it was very simple, and it was really cool because it was fun to be able to play with. But then, the reason why it went south fast was just a lot of people were being jerks, and they weren't being honest with the process. And they were saying, when you're putting in your power rating, if you put in a lower power rating, all it was just a text field. So the system would take whatever value you wanted. So, you could say, oh, I was running QRP when you're really running 100 watts, and they could never tell. You just can't. I mean, obviously, unless they were in the vicinity and they were like, well, why am I making contacts with someone?
Yeah, but I think they got pissed because someone did a whole log, 1,000 contacts, and you only had an hour to do it. And then they uploaded the log, and it was oh, that they won by a ridiculous amount of things. And I thought they got they got pissed, and they just said they shut it down. And I said, I get how they would be upset, but when it was going and people weren't really cheating, it was just fun. It was cool. They had a live stream going on, so you could be in the chat and you could, virtual, live stream doing it. And we used to do it, I think through the phone, right? Through
Ham Shack Hotline.
Ham Shack. We would all be on our club members, and we'd see what was going on. So yeah, it was fun.
Yeah, it was. It's kind of, now that you say that, it kind of inspired, I think, a lot of us to kind of really pick the digital mode up and, try it a lot more and be, a little bit deeper dive in it. I know, we kind of spurred off once that went south. I tried to bring up FT8 bingo, and that, that worked out pretty well, and that was pretty fun to do. And we'll probably have to do that again in the summer, in the fall winter time frame when we did it, last, because everyone's now asking in our club to go do it again. So we might have to try that another attempt there. And
We
that
could,
was
we could we could live stream it too.
we could, and we
58
probably
thing.
should, just as a fun.
Yeah.
So
Wait,
go
real
ahead.
quick. The other thing that I think, Paul, you're the one who, it was either you or Ryan. I think it was you who texted me one evening, and they're like, Antarctica is on FT8 on 20 meters. Was that you? Right. I thought it
Yep.
was you. And I'm like, Antarctica. I'm like, oh, so I
Yeah,
ran
and
down.
it was a Japan station
Yep.
in Antarctica.
Right.
Oh wow.
Yep.
And I ran down to my shack, turned on the computer, got on FT8, and saw him out there and went for it and got him. And so he's my Antarctica contact, and that gives me some kind of contact on every continent. So I thought that was pretty cool. And I tell people, like, yeah, I've used my ham radio to communicate with Antarctica. They're like, what? So
Okay. Well, so that a good, fair experience. I think a lot of us share that. So, Paul, kind of what's your been experience when obviously you were you were destined to be a serial digital, operator, but that obviously changed a little bit, and you saw the light. But what led you down that road, and why, and what kind of inspired you to get your setup going and dive into those modes?
Well, so my first HF radio was the ICOM 706 Mark II-G, and it came with a signal link, so it was already ready to go, interface with a computer, so that it was really easy to get on digital modes. And I was inexperienced, and I had a lot of mic shyness, if you will. I didn't feel comfortable getting behind a mic and giving my call sign, and trying to break through pileups and all of that. And so I did nothing but digital for probably the first 18 months that I was a ham. A lot of FT8. FT8 is yes, it's limited information, right? It's your grid square, it's your call sign, it's a signal report, and that's the end of the QSO.
Right.
However, like, you can rack up a lot of contacts with foreign countries and different grid squares, and so I started chasing like U.S. counties, right, and using grid tracker. Right, Grid Tracker is a fantastic company software to WSJTX. And I would use Grid Tracker to monitor, like, all right, well, I don't have these counties and I don't have these grids, and that's all I did. I was just chasing grids and counties, and it gives you something to do where you're playing with the radio,
Right.
But like, if you were like I was, and you don't want to get behind the mic, it allows you to get a lot of contacts in a lot of different places that you probably wouldn't normally get single sideband anyway.
Right. Yeah, it's a big struggle, I'd say, for including myself, being in an HOA where I have one antenna. I am very limited in who I can hear and what I can hear, and I'm very happy that what I have I can hear pretty good. But I sure, when it came to like a lot of these DX stations and stuff that or expeditions that I could and I know I can't hear, or I can't pick up, or they're just too far in the noise floor that I have here at the house. And my noise floor is like a 4 or 5, so it's not terribly bad, but it's still bad enough that you can't pull something out. And I can't set up multiple antennas, so I don't have the luxury of being able to make all that. So that is the draw for me for FT8. Minus the fact that I love the component from the computer standpoint of being able to, just have one more thing that was integrated more into my logging and all of that stuff. So it just really made it, that more, unified. And I was like, oh, this is really cool. I love it. I don't care. I have a short attention span a lot of times. So like, even when I do sideband, it's like, I don't rag chew a lot. Like, when I hear somebody and I make a contact, it's usually 5.9 and a couple of passing words, and then boom, we're off to the next thing, because and so my digital life is a lot like that too as well. And so it doesn't, inspire me, and I haven't moved myself towards like things like JS8 call where it's keyboard to keyboard and stuff, and we'll touch upon that in a second because I want to take Paul's feedback on what he's done, because he's done a lot more of that than Todd and I have. But have you guys really really embraced like the whole digital side? Have you done just FT8 only, or have you gotten into the other modes and other functionality that's in, say, WSJTX at all?
I've really done very little FT4 just because I wanted to try it out, and mainly just FT8. And I'll be honest with you, I've really, since I've really been focusing on POTA, I haven't really done a lot of FT8 lately. I used to get bored, or I was in the car waiting for something, I'd pull up my phone and start doing some FT8.
Yeah.
But I haven't really sat down. I'm a sideband guy. I like to talk to people. I like to make the contact voice to voice.
Go
But
figure.
yeah, but I'm not. I don't dislike FT8. I just said it's kind of like when I was working at home, I did a lot of FT8 because I would be working at home and I'd be doing FT8. It's a lot easier to do FT8 and work at home.
Yeah,
than
or
it is
or,
to do
or or do the overnights and do FT8.
Yeah. But now that I have the flex radio, when I do the overnights, I can do sideband too.
I
So
bet too, right? Exactly. So, all right. Well, so let's kind of touch on it. We obviously keep dancing around it a little bit. So I'm gonna throw the floor over to Paul there, and he's gonna kind of elaborate a little bit on the JSA call stuff and kind of try to explain it just as a kind of a little primer, and then what's your feelings on FL Digi and all that other stuff, and then we can kind of go from there.
Sure. Well, so with JSA call specifically, there's a lot of people that you'll find that they'll only do heartbeats and acknowledgments, and then it's frustrating to a point because it's like, I know you're there, like you got your computer just told me that you're there, but then you send a CQ out and then nobody answers. So it does get frustrating, but it is nice when you get Finland, right? I'm always trying to get OH8 STN.
Yes.
He's a phenomenal YouTuber. He does a lot of great off-grid stuff. It's just fantastic, and so I've always wanted to get him on JS8 call because I know that's one of his favorite modes. But I've gotten other Finland stations, and it's nice to be able to have that kind of keyboard to keyboard exchange where the signal probably isn't strong enough that you could carry on a sideband conversation, but the digital is able to get through, and so it's literally it's a live text kind of deal. You can opt to not have it say I'm typing while you're typing, or you can have it actually say I'm typing, which is kind of a neat. Yeah, it's kind of a neat little feature though. Like if the other person is typing and they have that on, it'll show on your screen. It'll say, so and so is typing. Vera AC is another great keyboard to keyboard where it's along the same lines where you send out a CQ and people will respond or not respond, but you'll at least get signal reports when you ask for them, when you put that out there.
Right.
It's just you're having a conversation typing instead of talking. That's the only difference.
Now,
yeah.
I was gonna say, in your experience with setting it up and kind of tweaking it, did you find it was relatively the same on par with WSJTX in terms of getting all that working, or a little bit more challenging or different, or both?
I would say JSA call is easier to set up and get running than WSJTX is. I had a lot of issues initially with things interacting weird with each other, audio card issues and whatnot. But anything digital, I mean, you're gonna have to suss those issues out anyways. Making sure that your audio levels are right. Like you'll have to open your sound settings in Windows, and assuming you're using Windows.
Mhm. Right.
But you have to adjust the audio levels in Windows. Otherwise, you'll be overdriving the input, or you're overdriving into the computer. But it's not super difficult. I would say probably the most difficult bit of digital software to get set up would be FLDigi. And that's just because it can do so much. There are so many different modes that FLDigi does, and having your macros at the top, it just makes life a lot easier. And so it takes a bit of a learning curve to get through setting up the macros in FLDigi and understanding, okay, well, if I'm going to take part in a Contestia net, what is the exact Contestia mode? Because there are several. and and then you just wait your turn, and you chime in when you chime in. You say, okay, yep, I'm here to check in. And it's you can have a lot of fun with it.
So in terms of the mode itself, or all of those modes you mentioned, how do they stack up in comparison to, like, FD8 tends to be like what, a minute and a half or so for a full end-to-end QSO, or a little bit shy of 2 minutes. How is that in the whole, other modes and digital modes? You find that it's just a lot longer because it's more manual kind of keyboard type stuff, or is it about equal, or or something in the middle?
Yeah, it varies. Obviously, so I want to say that both JS8 and Vera are 15-second windows, right? Where you'll transmit. But so if you've got a long bit of text, what it'll do is it'll transmit your 15 seconds, and it'll wait for the acknowledgement, and then it'll continue. It'll wait for the acknowledgement, and then it'll continue, right, until it gets to the end. And so it does take a little bit longer, I guess. I call FT8 now my lazy radio. It's what I do when I'm multitasking, right? So if I'm on a voice chat in a Discord server, I'll have FT8 going in the background, and I'll just, yeah, all right, enable TX to send the CQ, and then I'll get the pop up dialog when the QSO is complete, and I know that I got to go back into the app and hit enable TX again, right? And it's nice that you can just kind of run it in the background. You don't have to babysit it so much. Whereas the keyboard to keyboard modes, like, you have to be, you've got to be right there on it. Otherwise the other person's going to be sitting there and they'll be like, why hasn't he responded yet?
20 years later, I'm still on the QSO with Paul.
Like, oh, I'm sorry, I was chatting with the people at Discord, and then I went and took a pee break, and
I had a podcast to do.
I know, right? I went to go get my colonoscopy. It took a really long time.
Now, I will say, because we are talking like digital, you can't forget to mention WinLink, because WinLink is that's one of those that, yeah, it's not a super popular mode, I guess, but it's functional, and I believe that there is a use for it, especially if there was ever a situation where the internet went down, right? Because you don't need internet to do WinLink, right? It's email over HF, and so as long as the other computer is receiving your signal, it's all a store and forward kind of deal, and so it's a nice thing to know how to use.
Right. Yeah, and we could definitely go into a long length, and I think one of the things that might be worthwhile sometime is to bring on some of the ardent in Aries guys that they use that heavily, and it's a great tool for that, and they promote it very much from an MCOM standpoint. So I've dabbled a little on WinLink, but I'll say I cheated and didn't really do it over HF, did it over Telnet, and so we won't discuss that and the reasons why I did or didn't, but I haven't really gone back and fooled around with WinLink itself. How about you, Todd? Any of those modes you've gotten into?
Nope.
Okay.
Haven't even looked at it. I heard of them, but never really got into it.
Well, so then let's kind of circle back a little bit on some of we did mention some pitfalls and stuff like that, but I think we can kind of help correct some of those components a little bit in terms of helping you along and where to kind of look. But one of the things I want to talk about that is very, and as every other point in this hobby, there's always some controversial side of things. And Paul sort of alluded to it. And I alluded to at the very beginning that, if everyone remembers, what I read about the world coming to an end, so forth and so on, the lovely, forked developers who probably helped contribute, obviously, to writing WSJTX, also wrote what they call a Z component of WSJTX. And I always get flack when I say I used it, so I don't tell anybody I use WSJTX, or I don't put the Z at the end any longer. But those that know, you can download it. It's the same version as WSJTX. Does a lot of the same. It's the same basic features. Well, let's get to the positives on that one. So, WSJTX-Z is an automation tool. Like literally, like if you love automation, then you need to just skip over WSJTX and go to the Z version. Primarily because they have auto modes, they have a lot of capabilities that allow for we'll say automation of making or trying to get context. So one feature I truly love in WSJTX-Z is that if I'm looking for I'm trying to hunt a specific call sign, I can just go into the tool and fill in a field and say, I'm looking for this call sign because I know they're popping up on the either the cluster or whatever, and they're doing FT8. And WSJTX will watch for it in the decodes and keep watching. And then when it finds it and if there's an opening, it'll automatically start the contact for me and go through the whole exchange. And then when it's done, log it and done. And then, it's finished. Or, if I'm fooling around with the auto CQ that Paul alluded to, that method is you don't really have to hit the TX button with that one. You just click the button and you can literally walk away. Guilty. I walked away for 5 hours and I had come back and my log was like full. And I'm like, what happened? And I realized, oh crap, I left auto CQ on and it was just kind of logging. Whoever heard me was just like, yep, I'll grab you. No problem. And just kept going. And, I think I literally worked overnight and made like 55 plus calls. Because I forgot. And I obviously didn't learn my lesson the first time because I did it 2 more times before. So like as Paul said, hey, it can fill up your log fast, and you don't know how quickly it does it until it does it. So yeah, there's a lot of cool features in WSJTX-Z that help in automation and is a great tool. And, you decide for your own, personal choice as to whether or not you feel comfortable in using a tool like that. Or, you'd rather, be with the regular, folks in the regular JTX world. So all good there. But Paul, I assume you probably have a couple of, fun features that you used in it that, you might want to elaborate on.
Yeah. So my favorite 2 features of the Z mod is pounce, which is what you referred to, right? Where, you see somebody in the decode and they could be making a QSO with somebody else, but it shows up as like a different color because it's somebody that you want.
Yep.
And you right click on the decode and you go pounce. And the next time that they say 7-3 or they call CQ, it'll automatically jump on them for you. That is fantastic. The other cool feature of the Z mod that the regular doesn't have is the auto find the opening, right? And so sometimes, sometimes like wherever you are in the spectrum scope, it fills up quick and everybody's kind of on top of everybody. And so you might lose kind of where you're at, where there's somebody else that's just blasting on top of you. And now the people that could hear you can no longer hear you. You click that auto and it just finds the holes for you. And every time you click it, it'll move to a new hole. And so you can watch across and you go, okay, yep, that's a good hole. And I'll stick with that. And then you just hold your TX frequency from there and go. So yeah, those are my 2 favorite features of the Z mod.
Yep. Yeah. I love the fact that it's got built in like QRZ search and stuff like that. Todd, I think we got you to download it and install it.
Yeah, I did. I like the pounce mode. That's the pounce feature. That works pretty well.
Yeah, it's definitely a great feature and great functionality, and they keep evolving it lockstep with I think regular WSJTXZ. So if you haven't tried it, go ahead and install it. You're not going to miss much, and you won't lose any functionality if you decide to downgrade it to the regular normal version. But you know,
The other thing too, like with FT8 and the digital modes, if the sideband, if the bands are dead or there's a lot of noise or solar storms, flares, whatever, and it's not working, like you just like there's no one on because it's just the bands are crappy. FT8 works.
yeah,
I
it
mean, you
does.
make good contact. So I've used it a lot where I've like really had the urge to get on the radio and do something, and there's nothing on the waterfall and everything you hear is staticky and whatever. So I'll switch over to FT8, and then all of a sudden you'll see a lot of activity, and then you're still playing radio, but you're not you're getting through that noise. The digital is and the computers are able to weed through that and hear you, and then you start making contact. So it can be fun, like in that sense. But like I said, for me, if you like the bands, there's just people talking, and I see, I'm gonna jump on that. But like
Well,
I said, yeah, I mean, I haven't done it on POTA yet, but I do when I do FT8. Anyone that says CQ POTA, I always jump on those guys, and
oh yeah,
those guys will hit you like more than once. So like a lot of times, if you work like a guy on in my experience, if you work someone on FT8, they're not going to answer you because they're
mhm,
looking for new contacts, right? The
right.
POTA guys will pick you up anytime because they're just looking to activate their
They
part.
want as many contacts as they can get. Yep.
Yes, so
Guaranteed.
so I always jump on the POTA guys and try to make sure that they get their contacts in. So
Very cool. Well, that's definitely a good tip there because I describe the same way. Anytime I see, I use a kind of a helper app, and actually, Paul alluded to some of the helper apps like Grid Tracker, and I want to touch on those a little bit. One of the ones I use is JTDX. It's more of a kind of text based. It's not as we'll say GUI intensive as Grid Tracker is, although Grid Tracker does a lot more than just POTUS type stuff and or just FTA type stuff. So it does really there, but I needed something a little bit more kind of like quick visuals where I could sort things by like all the things I need. So if it's going against my log and I'm looking, like Paul said, he was hunting for grid squares, I can filter out all of the extra noise and just only go for certain grid squares that I know that the system knows I'm missing or I need. And or if a special event station or it's an @no for my log, it tells me very quickly in a text flashing idiot sign says, hey, click on this one, you need to you need to make a QSO with them. And it gives me a lot of like quick easy information from a visual standpoint. But Grid Tracker, we all have used it. I don't think, I think I uninstalled it, but I haven't played with it in a while. I mean, talk a little bit about, I mean, Paul, you obviously mentioned it, but Todd, you use it heavily too as well, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. When I do FT8, I'm on Grid Tracker.
Now, do you like it because of just its visual text stuff or the visual aspect of it?
I like the visual aspect of it. Some of the other ones, like I watched some of you guys do other ones, I was like, it just for me, it was just it's kind of like the Apple TV of or
I like to see the
or
little
Apple, like
lines.
yeah, like Apple. How Apple is just so easy. Like you just get on it and it just seems to work. It's kind of like the way Grid Tracker is for me.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, that was kind of the one of the things that I already had, and so
I don't know, Paul. What are you not an Apple guy? All I know
I
is
do
that when
nothing Apple.
okay, well, my argument is when Zach is like 2, and I give him the iPad, and he can work the iPad. He can't read, or maybe he was 1. He couldn't talk. He can do it, but he could do that freaking iPad. That tells me it's idiot proof. But I will tell you this: they have not figured out a way for my parents. Like
yeah, well,
it's too
that's definitely
complicated for them, and I'm just like, what is going on? I go, how can your grandson do it when he was like not even speaking, and you're a grown adult, many years on this earth, been through colleges, schools, worked, retired, like you honestly can't figure this thing out? Like, come on.
come on, man. It's the same reason why your Minnesota NCO would basically told you to get off the frequency because they've owned it for 45 years because he's done it that way forever and he's not going to
Yeah.
change.
Yeah. Well, that would be them. Yeah. That's the way they are. I mean, on a side note, my mother calls me up. "Hey, you have to come fix the printer. We're going on." They don't use digital. What do you call it? Like boarding passes, so they got to print them out. Like who does that anymore? But they do.
My
So my
printer.
mother's freaking out because she's got to go to she's flying out to see my brother in California, and she can't get the printer working, and she can't. And I'm like, "Ma," I'm like, "All right, I'll come over. I'll come over." I'm like, I got her the simplest printer. It's like you turn it on, and it's hooked up to her phone, her
That's
computer, and
good.
her iPad, and just hit print, and it'll go. Right? It's simple as that. She's flipping out. I go over there. I look at the printer. I hit the on button. Bzz, bzz, there goes all her her
5 million
30
pages.
her 30 boarding passes that she's printing. I'm like, "Mom, power on will work."
So
I even
actually, that's a good segue. I mean, we should talk about like, if you're an older person and you have not delved into the WSJTX world or any of the digital modes because you're just freaked out, it's too hard, find a younger person, either our
call
age or
call
younger.
Eric.
No, don't call me
NJUR
personally.
and N1OG. They know what they're
Yeah.
doing.
Yeah. No, definitely don't find someone locally who can go next to
Yeah.
you, and sit parallel with you, and walk you through all of those components. Because I guarantee once they get you set up, they'll spend a little extra time explaining a few things so you know what to do when the crap hits the fan or something stops working. Because we all know, and Paul's mentioned it, is like Windows. You're bound to have some stupid sound setting get changed, and all of a sudden the driver for the sound card just goes on the fritz and says, I just had to take a vacation. I'm not working with the radio today. Go call somebody else. Or whatever, you fill in the blank. So, I guess that's kind of the best thing for advice I'd say is don't try to do it on your own. You will get frustrated. Find someone who's set it up in your club or in an area or on a Discord or something, and have them help you out.
And if
Because
you have no friends and you have no clubs, there's always YouTube,
and a net. Yeah.
right? You can pretty much find anything to do on YouTube. I'm just too lazy. I just call Eric. Eric, help me set this up. Why isn't this working? Fix this for me.
You'd have paid me in beer. That's the problem.
Yeah. And you know what? And I'm not like, for me, it's just like with my flying hobby. I really hate building airplanes. I hate putting them together. I just like to play with them, right? I like to fly them, just like with ham radio. Like, me personally, I don't really get into I'll listen to you guys talk about, but I don't, all the, how to set this up and that. I just want it to be set up and I want to work it.
Mhm.
That's me. That's just the way I am. I don't care how it works. It doesn't thrill me to know how it works.
I think we
just
have
want it
another
to
shirt
work.
making here.
Yeah, maybe.
Appliance
I
operator
just
on the
wanna
front.
well, right, like, I just wanna operate, like, I'm when I was studying for the extras, like, I'm like, I could care less about this stuff. I am never, ever, personally ever going to use any of this because it doesn't interest me, and it doesn't affect me from taking my radio, going out to the park, setting up my antenna, and making contacts. Nothing,
Roger.
right? And that's me personally. Like, some guys are really into that, and that's great. I got guys in my flying club that they are like, they don't care so much for flying. They fly, but their big thing is building, and it's awesome. Build away, have that pride and do it. I love looking at the stuff you're building, but don't give me a kit and say, "Here, Todd, build this," because it's never getting done, ever. It's not happening.
Take my money.
Yeah, I'll pay someone to build the plane. I try to get the young kids. I said, "Hey," I try to get the young kids in the club that are like all into it. I said, "Hey, you want to build a kit for me? I'll give you like $50." Really? Yeah, here's the box. Tell me when it's done.
Oh man. All right. Well, so we didn't allude to it too much, and I obviously we want to just kind of put some closure to this because we could go down this rabbit hole for hours. Any of you guys play with any of the other modes? Because obviously FT8 is a good one, but you've got like Hellschreiber and a few others, including FT4. I always forget about FT4. I don't know about you, but it's like I'll be doing FT8 and I'll be like, I've seen the same contacts on the waterfall all the time, and I never think to myself, why don't I always flip over to FT8? It's a faster mode by like almost half of what an FT8 contact takes to be able to generate. But yet I still don't remember to flip over to play with it. You guys do a lot of FT8 at all in any of your digital stuff? I'm sorry, FT4. Yeah,
FT4.
yeah, right.
Yeah, so I've played with FT4. I played with JT65. But I think we're remiss in the fact that we haven't mentioned the most important mode in WSJTX, which is, if I remember correctly, weak signal propagation reporting. Yes.
Yep. WSPR. Yep.
All right.
Wonderful tool. So go ahead, since that was my kind of like cream of my notes here. I wanted to talk about that because it helps for, folks, appliance operators like Todd, and, we'll use it heavily when we do our matchup, when we talk, we do the 80-meter coil head to head, but go ahead. Describe a little bit what Whisper is and why you like to use it.
Well, all right. So the overall general advantage of any mode in WSJTX is the fact that it's all designed on weak signal. I believe it's minus 22 dB is the bottom threshold there.
Yeah.
But yeah, 100%. You want to know how your antenna is performing, how your setup is performing. You run Whisper for a couple of minutes and check the PSK reporter and see, all right, well, who's actually hearing me, and how well am I doing?
Yeah.
And then if you got an issue with your antenna, it's going to show up right away. If you got an issue with something, it's going to